Salvē, amici, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at John chapter 4, verses 41 and 42. But first, last time in John chapter 4. Howe'er. How did I miss that? Now, last time in John chapter 4. Funny the things you miss, and then remain missed for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I don't actually know how long it's been. Here's our rubric, everything that we look for as we go through the text. Let's get started. Et multo plures credederunt propter sermonum eius, et mulieri dicebant, quia iam non propter tuum loquellam credimus. Ipse enim adivimus et scimus, quia hic est vere salvator mundi. And there we go. And connecting us to the previous clause, or previous sentence, multo, wrong form, plures, that es could be a nominative or accusative plural. Masculine or feminine. Credederunt, erunt there, don't need to parse it, we already know what that ending is, which then confirms that this is nominative, not accusative, and then it's going to be masculine generic, since it stands in for both of them, and the previous plurals that we've had were all masculine. Multo here is going to be our ablative, singular, neuter, because it's showing a concept, or it's showing it's modifying like an adverb would, and those are always neuter. Propter, prepositional phrase, so we're going to stop there. And plures, I forgot to say, this is also a comparative. Don't see very many of those, but this is plus, plures, and plurissimus, plurimus. I think it's plurimus. Could be wrong. Probably I'm wrong. Usually assume I'm wrong. That's my advice. Suppose there's a contradiction in that. Anyway, comparative. Multo here is acting as a ablative showing degree. I don't think, because in the Greek it's the dative that does it, and the dative shares many functions as the ablative in Latin would. But then, of course, genitive also picks it up. Anyway, I think that this is showing measure. And now we can get around to this prepositional phrase. Sermonum plus accusative here. Singular. Sermon, sermonis, sermonem tells it that this can't be neuter. And I forgot to write down which it is. I think masculine. However, since I'm not sure, note's going to pop up and correct that, and then I will write it in after the video's over. Assuming I remember. Forgot to do something for that for the Greek for quite a while. Propter sermonum eius, wrong form for that, so prepositional phrase ends here. On account of eius, from is id, genitive singular. This is going to be referring back to Jesus. Got that J right there. And sermonum, I don't remember which word that we've been using for this. We could, of course, use sermon. We could use saying. We could use speech. We could use word. And I think, especially since we've got another word coming up pretty soon, speech is the wrong one for that. So instead I'm going to go with sermon, and I'm going to put word underneath that. Though we've got verbum that appears frequently, which we normally would use as word. Okay, verse 42, and mulieri, I right there as our ending tells us that this is a dative. Mulier, mulieres, mulieri, yep, dative. Singular, feminine. Dicebant, B-A-N-T, there is a third plural. Off of the present stem there for a imperfect tense. Really hoping that would last longer. But Frigius Maximus, Calamitus Maximus, might be his middle name, I don't know. Active and indicative. They were saying, or they began to say, as we've got the different options with the imperfect tense, dative as our indirect object. And it always happens with the word woman. It doesn't happen, well, no, sometimes it has happened with the word man, and manned. But not manned as in manned, the actual word. It's weird. Probably because I'm used to writing the word and so much. Quia introduces a either indirect statement or a direct statement, in this case with credimus right there, M-U-S, for a first plural. Credo, credere. So this I does tell us that it is present, because it would be credo, credere, credidi, with the reduplication for perfect, active, and indicative. So this has to be introducing direct statement. That, quote mark. Iam are adverb showing time. Non propter prepositional phrase. Tuum, loquellum with that am, accusative, singular, feminine, credimus wrong form. So closes the prepositional phrase, plus accusative. Now, not. And then loquellum, this comes from loquor, which is the word that I normally translate as speak to. I think that's how I normally translate it. So then the proper noun for this would be speech, on account of your speech. Ipsi, so we've got a relative pronoun right here. No, not a relative pronoun. A demonstrative, in this case reflexive pronoun with that I can only be nominative, plural, masculine. Enim, for. When we see an enim, we should know that we've got a new clause going on, so we should put a comma right here. Enim is a postpositive, meaning it has to be no further forward than the second word in the sentence. It can be bumped back to the third word if there is another postpositive, which is not a common occurrence, but it does happen. And then it's interesting to see which one takes priority. And that's probably a author by author thing. I don't remember the last time I saw two postpositives together, but to use a term of the 90s, it really wigged me out. Adivimus, IMUS, for another first plural, not singular. With that V right there, we know that this is the perfect tense. It's active, and it is indicative. Otherwise, we'd have an R instead of that S. For ipse, ourselves, we specifically ourselves. Et and skimos, skio, skire, skiwi, or skii. We don't have two I's, we don't have a V, so this is going to be first plural, what's wrong with me? Plural present tense, active and indicative as well. Another direct statement, just as that quia introduced. Hic est, so from hic, from hic, hike, hoc, huius, huius, and so on. Nominative, singular, masculine. Est, we don't need to parse. Vere is an adverb from verum. We also have verum as an adverb and vero as an adverb. Each of them technically is used in most commonly used in their own specific clause and in their own specific way, possibly even associated with specific words. But that's a lot of detail. And as you know, I'm very lazy, so I never bothered to memorize anything involving these adverbs. Which, if someone wants to get into Latin composition, that is something that you should know. You should know when to use an E or an I at the end of the ablative of the present participle. You should know which form of the adverb for verum you should use. A lot of stuff to work on if you want to do composition in another language. And it should be very obvious by now. I am not suited for that at the present moment. So if you ever hear me putting out something written in Latin, approach with great caution and assume it's my doppelganger. Salvator, O-R, as a common nominative, singular, masculine ending, and this would be salvator, salvatoris, I believe, of the third declension. Can't say that I remember for sure there. But this is, at the very least, the subject, or the predicate from est. And then mundi, I right there. Could be nominative plural. Doesn't make any sense. Wrong verb. Wrong everything. Instead, genitive, singular. And I think, this is one of those words that I always have trouble remembering, but I think this is neuter. I believe this is where their speech ends, so closing quote marks of world. And there we have it. Let's take a look at it in its own context. And by much more believed on account of his sermon. And to women they were saying that, now not on account of your speech do we believe. For we ourselves have heard and we know that this man is Savior of world. Should probably put a period right there. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you have a very good day. Wale.